we'd like to acknowledge that this podcast is being performed on the Toronto traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit.
And we'd also like to acknowledge that this podcast is being filmed on the traditional Miami lands of the Tequesta peoples and the Miccosukee peoples. We highly encourage you to check out and learn more about these Indigenous groups. They're fascinating. Thank you very much and enjoy the podcast.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Cross Continent Chat Sports Podcast. My name is Charlie Wayman. I am from Miami, Florida, and I am joined by my co-host and good friend, Rachel Bishop from Toronto, Ontario. Let's get right into it. So, this is a pretty big topic that came up in the news this week, but Philadelphia Eagles star wide receiver DeShaun Jackson has been receiving great scrutiny for posting an anti-Semitic quote attributing to Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Third Reich in Germany during World War II. With all of this, with all of his anti-Semitic comments, he has apologized. He has regretted what he's doing. He is trying to work with foundations and so on and so forth to really combat this. And he's really felt sorry for him. But regardless, he still made a horribly anti-Semitic comment. Should the Philadelphia Eagles cut him, since that is really the standard for offensive social media posts?
Well, just to back up a bit to say exactly the quote that he said, because it has been deleted, so it's hard to find, but I was able to find it. And what he said was, it was an Instagram story. He said that white Jews will blackmail America. They will extort America for world domination. They'll extort America. Their plan for world domination won't work if the black people know who they were. So that's quite bad. I think he did apologize and say he didn't know that Hitler was one who originally said it, but come on, do your research, buddy. It was a bad quote. I think ultimately, I don't know. That's a tough one. Definitely there should be some sanctions against him. Like there's no place in the league for that at all. Do I think they should cut him from the team for saying that? I mean, I'm sure worse things have been said and players haven't been suspended. I don't know. But we see the NFL had a really hard time cutting players for domestic violence for a while. So I don't know if this is something that they'll do. Definitely he should be suspended without pay for a long period of time and maybe take some sensitivity training, things like that. I think that would really help. But in terms of actually being cut from the team, I'm not sure.
Okay, I kind of have a different opinion to that, simply because the Philadelphia Eagles are definitely no stranger to having a player make an offensive comment. There was a former player of the Philadelphia Eagles named Riley Cooper, who, as a matter of fact, said the N-word at a country music concert in 2013. I think it was 2013. And he got into serious scrutiny. He didn't leave the team, but clearly 2 years later, he quietly left the team. So that's definitely a huge problem. But I think with the NFL in general, every player who's come up with an offensive tweet or anything that's either a white supremacist comment or pretty much anything offensive, they've cut the player. The player's lost a job for this. And while DeShaun Jackson, you can apologize all you want, man. And I know other players and other members of the celebrity community are defending him, but you still said it. And even if you didn't know it was related to Adolf Hitler, it's still a rough comment. It's still a nasty comment, regardless. And it's still, pointing out the white Jew specifically. So I think they should cut him. And I think because if not, it's going to be a huge double standard and it's going to create more controversy in the United States more than there already is. I think they should avoid the double standard and just release him. If another team picks him up, okay, I agree with you on the sensitivity training, because, well, frankly, everybody should go through that at some point if you're a player for an organization, no matter, even if you did even if you've done an offensive comment or not. It's not okay. The Jewish people have suffered through a lot. This is just not okay. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to go on. I'm going to go on a little bit with that because I could clearly rant about the first question for days. So this one kind of also hit the news. It's kind of big. So as we all know, the NBA are entering the bubble, which is Disney World. They are at the ESPN Sports Complex. They have world-class accommodations. Yes, the top seat has the nicest accommodations, but they all have world-class accommodations. They've been ranting for whatever reason about video games in bedrooms and ping pong tables. Feels like a college dorm room, to be honest. But they got world-class accommodations. But on the other hand, a different part of the NBA is the WNBA. So the WNBA is continuing like the NBA, but they're not at Disney World. They're actually at a prep school in a smaller town outside of Orlando called Bradenton, Florida. And their entering the bubble, so to speak, wasn't so smooth. Rooms were disgusting. The rooms had millipedes. They had bed bugs. They clearly had lesser quality accommodations than the world-class ones that the NBA players have. And my question for you, Rachel, is why do you think the NBA didn't include the WNBA at Disney?
The NBA owns the WNBA, right?
Yes.
Right. They own the NBA, so there's no reason why they couldn't have had the WNBA at Disney. And Disney has space for sure, especially now since there's no people. That's very interesting. I'm also surprised though that the prep school dorms are that bad, because usually prep schools, you pay a lot of money to send your kid to prep school. They're usually very, very nice, elite, world-class accommodations. So I guess they just been neglected. They haven't been cleaned because no one's there right now. But why haven't they been cleaned? I mean, it's kind of like treating these women like second-class citizens, which is pretty shameful, especially for a league such as the NBA, which is supposed to be this really progressive league in terms of the professional sports world. And they've done more for women's sport than arguably any other professional league. And they give these players that treatment. It's pretty surprising to that happen. I don't know why they didn't put them at Disney Worlds, to be honest. Maybe there is not enough space in terms of the arenas and actual places to play. Maybe that would have been too hard to arrange, but they could have just had games on different days, things like that. I'm sure they could have worked it out. So that's very surprising.
Well, aside from the cleanliness, let's just put that on the back burner a little bit. The other thing that I want to touch upon is, do you think the NBA got these world-class accommodations and the WNBA didn't, because the WNBA doesn't really make nearly as much money as the NBA? Do you think it's a financial reason? So they're going to put the ones that make the most money in the nicer accommodations?
That could definitely be true. It could be that also, as you said, the WNBA, because the NBA is paying Disney to be in the bubble, right? So it could also be that the WNBA doesn't have the money that Disney would be looking for to be in this bubble. That is quite interesting, because I know that the MLS, they're in Orlando, but they're not at Disney, as far as I know.
No, they are at an ESPN sports complex, but it's soccer fields. It's not basketball.
Okay,
So
but
they're on a whole different part of the complex.
But they're at Disney too?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
They are. The hotels, I believe, are different, but they play at the ESPN sports complex.
Okay, because MLS is another league that doesn't have that much money, so that was going to be my point. But now that's no longer valid since they're also Disney. So I'm not sure about the National Women's Soccer League. You know that they've started play. They're also supposed to be in Orlando, but I'm not sure where they're staying. I don't believe they're staying at Disney, so it could also just be. I don't want to draw to conclusions, but it also could just be like a men get the sexism issue too. Could be another factor if the NWSL is also not staying there, and that's some of the best soccer players in the world play in that league. So,
yeah, that's always a potential, but it's definitely not a good look for the NBA that they're going with that. Personally, the cleanliness of forgetting to cleaning is not really an excuse.
No.
It's not an excuse. You could see it as more of an excuse, terrible servers or housekeepers or whatever. But
Yeah.
this is coronavirus. Like everybody's paranoid and on super on being clean. People are carrying Lysol cans and sanitizers in their car. It's pretty hardcore. So that cleanliness excuse it's not viable. It's coronavirus. How could you not provide a cleaning service to fact where there's bugs in the women's beds? There's millipedes, which are gross. I have them at home. It's a Florida thing. I have them at home myself. That's gross. Everything else. It's amazing the difference in accommodations. World-class Disney hotel, prep school. So I really wonder, let's say if it was the other way around and the women's league is the one that's making the millions of dollars, and if it would be that the women are at Disney and the men are at the prep school.
I don't think so. I think the men would still be at Disney.
I don't know because the other thing is the NBA is progressive. They are the out of all the leagues, they are the more of the progressive league.
Yes,
This is why it's kind of a shock. So I think the women would be in the better accommodations if they were the ones making the money.
No, but the men would put their foot down and they would complain and they just wouldn't play. And they'd say, we want better accommodations or we're not playing. I could see that happening too because athletes are divas.
Yeah, I could, but also I think and the NBA obviously has tons of divas, but they wouldn't be as divas as much if they didn't make as much money as they do, making $30 million or $40 million a year.
That's true.
So, perhaps the men could do the stereotypical men thing, be like, oh, it's a bug, let me just smash it. Whatever, man, that's good. Or they could actually complain about all the bugs. So who knows? I think the NBA, if the WNBA actually made money not made money, my bad. They made more money and they made as much money as the NBA, like the roles were reversed. Mm-hmm. Men were making less. I think the women would be at Disney World because I couldn't see the NFL do that. I couldn't see the NHL do that. But the NBA, I think they would because they're the most progressive league out of all of the leagues in the US and Canada.
That's true.
So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt on that hypothetical scenario.
You do make a good point about how they're not as much divas if they don't make as much money. Like we see the hockey players, they don't make as much money as basketball or football or soccer, and they're not as much divas as the guys as those athletes, right?
Oh, there are many divas in hockey. And I'm glad you mentioned hockey because that is our next question. All right. So there is a new coaching change. I know I'm stealing a little bit of the marketplace from you for this, but there is a head coaching change in the NHL. The team, New Jersey Devils. The coach, it's not a new college coach like they did last year because everybody went for a college coach last year. This is a veteran NHL coach, one of the winningest coaches of all time. He is an old man. His name is Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff is a veteran NHL coach. He's got over 300 wins under his belt, and he's going to be the new head coach of the New Jersey Devils, which sponsors players like Taylor Hall, just kidding, Nico Hischier, PK Subban, and upcoming goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood, Will Butcher. They've got a lot of potential talent and they've got potential in that team. So, what are your thoughts on Lindy Ruff as the new head coach of the Devils?
I didn't really see this one coming. I'd heard about the rumblings for a while, but I was still pretty surprised because Lindy Ruff has been out of the NHL for so long. I just never pictured him getting another job. Seems like they did a pretty thorough search, but as you said, he is of that old school mind, and we're really seeing kind of a shift from the old school NHL, kind of like we talked about a couple weeks ago with the old boys club, to the new mentality of the embracing the era of analytics and speed game, and very different from the truculence and belligerence that Brian Burke and Lindy Ruff and Hitchcock and those guys really like, right? So I mean, Lindy Ruff, as you said, he is a very winning coach. He's won a lot. He's had success in the playoffs. He's never won a Stanley Cup. I do believe I don't think he has. He was with the Sabres for 15 years, so he's got a lot of success with players, in different cities and things like that. And as I said, he's been successful in the Olympics. He's been successful in the international stage. That's his Olympics, playoffs, and international stage. But I don't know if he can really adjust to this new game. I feel like that was a big issue in Dallas. It's why he ended up getting fired in Dallas, was because he wasn't able to make those adjustments, and ultimately his downfall in Buffalo toward the end as well. I don't know if he's able to make those adjustments that you need in this day and age to be an NHL coach. We kind of saw Ken Hitchcock had to change his whole coaching style when he came back to coach in Edmonton, to change the way he had coached before, which was quite interesting. But he still made them play a very defensive system, but he still changed a lot of his style. So if Lindy Ruff can do that and can change his style into a more, can adapt a more modern game, especially with the young players that New Jersey has, as you mentioned, like Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier and Pika Subban, who are all offensively gifted and offensively minded players, I think he can do well. But I'm not sure if he'd be my first choice, but there's not that many coaches out there. But at the college, dipping your toe into the college pool has been pretty successful. You can try the AHL coaches. You can try AHL coaches of other teams. There's a lot of coaches. The NHL has a big problem with recycling coaches. More than any other league, the NHL loves to recycle coaches and just take coaches that have been hired and hire them again. They don't like to hire new coaches. It's very much, as we've said before, an old boys club. Once you get a job, it's likely you're going to get another job in the NHL unless something egregious happens to you, a la Bill Peters. So, even coaches like Mike Keenan, who was apparently horrendous, not nice to his players at all, nicknamed Iron Mike, he's had multiple jobs in the NHL. So I'm not surprised that the New Jersey Devils went this route, just because the NHL loves to recycle old coaches. Personally, I feel as though they could have gone with a different approach, a different type of game, but it'll be interesting to see if he can adjust to this new style of NHL. We'll see what happens when the season comes.
I'm glad you talked about the adjustment process. Could Lindy Ruff, with the new team, this is a new style of players, he did have some good success in Dallas. I actually credit Lindy Ruff because Dallas is a pretty good team. In my opinion, they are a playoff team. Obviously, Ben Bishop is a really big part of that, as well as Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, the usual suspects. But it was really Lindy Ruff that got that team from a non-playoff team to a playoff team. He had a positive record. Mm-hmm. Of course, after Lindy Ruff, Ken Hitchcock took over. Then Hitchcock, of course, Jim Montgomery, but then Jim Montgomery left for his personal issues with alcohol, so on and so forth. But the Dallas Stars became a competitive team. I might not say a Stanley Cup winning team, but a competitive team. And I credit a lot of that to Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff could also be another Daryl Sutter. Daryl Sutter was not the greatest analytics guy, but he won 2 Stanley Cups recently with the Los Angeles Kings. So it is possible, just because it's a new set of team, it's a new style, new type of players. He's got 2 young budding talents, of course, Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes. I think I like the move. I really do, because Lindy Ruff maybe might have 1 or 2 seasons just because of his age and because he's been there. And I'm sure he just was bored and had nothing to do in his house, in his mansion, because he probably has a lot of money. And, he just said, hey, heck it, screw it. Let's go coach. And, with that, I think it's a good move. And I think after Lindy Ruff does his thing and makes a positive impact on the team, they're probably going to upgrade from within, because I think he will also play a mentor role for any upcoming assistant coaches for the New Jersey Devils. I think that's instead of just the players, I'm thinking of Lindy Ruff's impact on the coaching staff. Of course, he brings in his own coaches and so on, but I'm talking the player development coaches. I'm talking really the inner grounds of the system. I think Lindy Ruff is going to leave a positive impact on that franchise. Those are my thoughts on that. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that's an interesting point of view. Yes. But you could be right. He could leave a positive impact again, jury's still out because New Jersey's not in this play-in round, so we won't see him coach until December, I guess, when the new season starts. So he's going to have a lot of time. I guess the one positive thing is he's going to have a lot of time, longer than usual, to kind of adjust and get to know his team on a personal basis and kind of develop a system based on the players he has. So that could work in his favor as well, because he's going to have more time to do all these things. Ultimately, though, I think this is kind of a segue, or not really that related, but I think ultimately it doesn't matter who you have as coach. You could have, Scotty Bowman back there on the bench. I don't think it matters unless you get some consistent goaltending. And I think that's the reason why they've gone through so many coaches and GMs over the years is because they haven't had consistent goaltending. Korsnatter's not what he used to be. As you said, Mackenzie Blackwood, he's up and coming. He's still pretty young. Jury's still out on him. So that's a big problem with New Jersey. So Lindy Ruff can only do so much. He can't work miracles. So he can adjust all he wants and make them play a different system. But at the end of the day, if no one's there to stop the puck, it doesn't matter who's the coach.
No, that's a valid point. All right. Thank you for that, Rachel. That ends our interview portion of the podcast at this time. And we're going to go into a segment that I would like to call sports spectacles. So what I mean by sports spectacles is that everybody, I tune into everybody and everything that's happening during the week and pick my games for the week. They are not always good teams. They're always just teams just for the quality of the sport. So to start with, we're going to start with Wednesday, the 15th of July. The recent Premier League champions, Liverpool FC, face off against a team that is trying to fight for a Europa League spot, named Arsenal FC. Liverpool and Arsenal have a history of solid matches. They're always high scoring. They're always exciting. I think this is going to be a really good one. So I recommend Arsenal-Liverpool on Wednesday. We're going to go into Thursday a little bit, and a game that I really think everybody should tune into is Leicester and Sheffield United. Leicester, they are a top 4 team this year. They're playing incredibly well under new manager Brendan Rodgers, and Sheffield United are absolute dynamos. Sheffield United was in the championship last year, and they are in a Europa League spot, and they're competing for a spot in the Europa League and even possibly the Champions League. That's something else. Because if Sheffield United magically get into the Champions League, of course, with a little help of Man City's transfer ban, that's always a possibility, that the amount of money that would go to that club would be incredible. They could upgrade stadiums. They could buy solid players because Champions League brings a lot of money and a lot of TV money towards that. So definitely check out Leicester City, and Sheffield United. Now we're going to go into Friday. And I want to kind of go across the pond to MLS, Sporting KC and Colorado. It's not the most exciting game. It's not the most high-profile teams, but it's good soccer. It's nice to see the MLS back. North American sports are slowly but surely coming back. The MLS is playing in Orlando, so that is definitely something nice to see. Is soccer. I actually tuned in to watch Orlando City FC, play Inter Miami, which Inter Miami lost. And even though I am definitely spoiled watching Liverpool FC absolutely destroy opponents, it was still a good game to watch. It was exciting. It was nice to see MLS come back. And we're going to go into Saturday. This is a match that's not in the Premier League. It's not in MLS, but it's in the FA Cup. England FA Cup. This is Manchester City, former defending champs, which they're not anymore, and Arsenal. So yes, even the disastrous season that Arsenal have had, well, they're in the semifinals of the FA Cup. So it's remotely possible that despite this season, they might actually still get some silverware out of it. Can you imagine that? So I definitely recommend Arsenal, Man City. I really hope Arsenal take it because Man City does not need any other trophies. Arsenal deserve this to actually get themselves into the final. That should be an awesome match. And those are my sports spectacles for the week. Anyway, with that, we're going to segue into Rachel's segment, which is the marketplace. So that is anything transfers, coaches, hirings, firings, that is going to be her speed. So, Rachel, take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlie. So, just to start off, some interesting news sticking with soccer in the soccer world. Manuel Pellegrini has been hired to take over as manager of Real Betis in the Spanish league, La Liga. If you know the name Manuel Pellegrini, he's been around the block for quite a while. He won a Champions League with Manchester City back in 2014, I believe they won. And he also recently coached in the Premier League this season. He coached West Ham. He was fired in December, and West Ham's not had a very good season. But he's a very good manager. He's been around for a while, and he's now going back to Spain to coach Real Betis, which is another struggling team, and his contract is through 2023. So that's quite interesting. It'll be his fourth time coaching in the Spanish league, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see how he transforms that team and if he can work wonders with that team. Another interesting thing to note in the soccer world is talking about teams who were just in championship who've now done well in Premier League. One of those teams is one of your favorites is Wolves, Wolverhampton Wolves. Wanderers, but Wolves is their nickname. So they were in championship a couple seasons ago and are now in the Europa League doing very well. And they have this player who a lot of people are interested in called Adama Traore. Is that how you say his name? Traore. And he's in a very interesting scenario because a lot of teams are really interested in him, according to ESPN's Mark Ogden. But what's interesting, according to Ogden, is that his future at Wolves could be tied to Champions League. So currently, Wolves sit in sixth place. They're just 3 points behind Manchester United for a Europa League spot. But that could become a Champions League spot if, of course, Manchester City has its a 2-year ban upheld and they can't be in Champions League for 2 seasons. If Wolves end up getting into the 5th spot, they could be in Champions League next season. They could also be in Champions League if they win the Europa League, and currently they're in a 1-1 draw with Olympiakos and from Greece in the round of 16. So what's interesting is that Ogden expects Traore to stay with the Wolves if Wolves qualify for Champions League this season. And there's 3 years remaining on his current deal. So likely, since he's done so well, they'll put a price tag on a region around 80 million pounds. Now, Barcelona is also interested in him, which is funny because Barcelona traded him away in the first place, and now they want him back. So that's always ironic. That's nice to see. They sold him to Aston Villa in 2015, and now he's second in the Premier League in assists, just behind Kevin De Bruyne. So that will be interesting to see what happens to that. Basically, according to the source, if they make Champions League, he's going to stay with the team. If they don't, he's most likely to leave, which would be quite interesting. So, of course, who's interested in him? Manchester City, which again, probably related to Champions League, and Juventus, who's looking for some young talent to replace aging stars like Cristiano Ronaldo. So that's definitely something that's interesting to watch out for in the transfer market as well. And something else, Manchester City would want him because Leroy Sané, this is another transfer that just happened recently. He has completed his transfer to go back to Bundesliga, and he's going back to Bayern Munich. So, of course, the rich get richer. It's the richest team in Germany, and now the team is going to be even more disgusting when you have Leroy Sané and then Alphonso Davies on left back, passing it to Leroy Sané on the wing, and they're just going to make some sweet music and destroy teams even further. So City could be looking to replace Leroy Sané, and they could look at someone like Traore as well to fill that gap. Leroy Sané wasn't playing much in City, and he was injured, so it makes sense he went back to Germany, but it's just unfortunate for every other team in Germany. And the final transfer that we have for the marketplace this week is something that Canadians are very excited about. So everyone, of course, knows about Alphonso Davies at this point. He's been Canada's superstar. He tore up the Bundesliga when the Bundesliga came back, and he's one of the most exciting players to watch in the world, and he's Canadian. Well, this doesn't happen often, but we have another Canadian superstar who is probably going to be the subject of a bidding war, and that is Jonathan David. He previously played for Ghent in the Belgian league, but he'll be leaving that league because he's tearing it apart. It's too easy for him. He'd previously said he was interested in going to Bundesliga. And that was league form, which he still could. Borussia Dortmund is still interested in him amongst a handful of other teams. But according to TSN, Lille in the French league, Ligue 1, has made an offer for him that he could sign. He hasn't signed anything yet. I think it's a 35 million euro offer. But Ghent is now hoping that there'll be a bidding war so they get more money for him. So Lille is definitely interested. Real Madrid and La Liga is interested. Borussia Dortmund and Bundesliga, as I mentioned. And then in Premier League, we have Arsenal and Manchester United. Now, Arsenal really needs help on defense, but their star player, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, is that how you say his name? Aubameyang. Thank you. He's not getting any younger, and he actually could leave the team, which is quite interesting. So he's really good, but as I mentioned, he's on the kind of the wrong side of 30. So if you have someone like Jonathan David in that Arsenal attack, it will free up the team, and it will help someone like Alexander Lacazette, and that could be a really formidable tandem right there. Of course, they still need help on defense, but as we've talked about it ad nauseum, the Premier League is the best league in the world. So if we really want to see your talent improve and develop, that's where you should go. So I'm hoping that he goes to Premier League and not French League, because I don't think it will challenge him as much. But I'm not Jonathan David, so it's not up to me. And that's it for the marketplace for this week.
We're going to go with a topic, a segment that we'd love to talk about, and it is called Ranting with Rachel. If you don't know what this is, basically I give a topic that really messes with Rachel, grinds Rachel's gears, and she has 5 minutes to completely rant about it. So the topic is, well, the NHL. The NHL did not go to the Olympics in Sochi. They did not go to the Olympics in Pyeongchang.
They went to Sochi.
Oh, my apologies. They did not go to the Olympics in Pyeongchang, and it's always been a huge scrutiny to not see NHL players in the Winter Olympics. Well, they're not going. They didn't go in 2018, but they're going. But the NHL apparently has said that they're looking to play in 2022 and 2026. So even though they've made such a stink about not, for injury reasons, that's their excuse, not letting players go play for their country in the Olympics, they're going to back on that and say, hey, 2022 and 2026, we're looking to send our players there. And the time starts now.
Once again, this just shows the sheer incompetency and disorganization of the NHL from the top down. I mean, they make a big stink about not going in 2018 because owners are mad that players got injured in 2014. Namely, the Islanders were upset that John Tavares, who was the captain of the New York Islanders at the time, injured his knee very early on in the tournament and couldn't play for the rest of the tournament for Team Canada. So they made a big stink about that. And then they organized their own tournament called the World Cup of Hockey, which was in Toronto, which was basically just a meaningless exhibition tournament of games in September. They even had teams like Team Europe and Team North America. So it was not even sanctioned by the IHF at all. It was just complete nonsense. And they claim they want to have this every 4 years. They didn't have, that was in 2016. They didn't have one this year. And now they're going back on their word and they're saying, oh, we're going to, because what happened was that their former CBA, the CBA is a collective bargaining agreement between the NHLPA, so the Players Association, the union, and the owners. So that both parties had an option to opt out of the CBA this September, but they decided to extend it to when it actually ends in 2022. But for some reason, they decided to negotiate the CBA at the same time as they negotiated their return to play format, which is quite odd because normally we have lockouts before they actually get anything done. And it was kind of odd they did it 2 years early because in 2018, the owners said, oh, we'll extend the CBA if and then you can go to the Olympics. But the players flat out disagreed to that. And now they've basically done the same thing where they're extending the CBA and throwing in the Olympics at the same time. So it just doesn't make any sense they would do it now and not do it then, when virtually not much is really changing the CBA. There's nitty-gritty economic stuff that's too complicated, but really not much is changing. except for maybe players making more money. So it just, once again, just shows the incompetency from both parties. It's not just the NHL, it's the Players Association as well. Players wanted to go in 2018, but they also didn't want to extend the CBA just to go to the Olympics. And now they've extended CBA and they're tying it to Olympic participation. So it's the same thing they didn't want to do in the first place. So basically this shows that, as you said, the NHL and the owner said it was for injury reasons and they don't want to disrupt the season, and they're the only league that has to do it, which is fair. But basically it shows that it was just BS from the very beginning, because players are going to be at risk in China and wherever it happens in 2026. So it basically just shows to me that the NHL is in it for money reasons. The NHL wants to expand to China. They want to grow a Chinese marketplace. There's a lot of money in China. NHL's trying to grow the game. So now that's why they want to go to the Olympics, so they can grow the game in China and actually expand and make some money out of it. For some reason, they didn't see it in Korea, and they threw in injuries as an excuse. And then wherever it's going in 2026, I believe it's going to be in Italy. European players like going there, not a big hockey country, but again, maybe trying to grow the game. So it just shows to me that their whole rationale for going was just BS. And we were basically wasted an Olympics of Crosby and McDavid and McKinnon together for Canada. And who knows if Crosby will be on the Olympics in 2022. He's going to be pretty old by that point. He will probably still make the team, but he might not be a big contributor. And we are wasting an opportunity to see all those guys together. He won't be on the team in 2026. If he's still playing, he's highly unlikely he'd be on the team, in my opinion, just because there'll be other guys on that team, right? He'd be pretty old by that point. So he'll be 39, right? So it just shows to me that, again, they're wasting players' talents. We could have had three Olympics, at least two, with Crosby, McKinnon, and McDavid all at the same time. Now we're only going to get two, maybe, probably one. And the IIHF will agree to this because, of course, they want to have the best of the best at the Olympics, because that's the whole point of the Olympics. So the IIHF, the International Ice Hockey Federation, and the International Olympic Committee are not going to say no. So it's just mind-boggling that once again the NHL, as I've said this many times, it shows their lack of organization and their lack of competency, because their whole rationale is just proven to be wrong. If they're really worried about injuries, they wouldn't let players go to the Olympics in 2022 and 2026.
For that, Rachel. Much appreciated. And on that NHL-laden bombshell, it is time to end. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into Cross Continent Chat Sports Podcast tonight. Good night.
Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe out there as well.